The 10th episode of Alexander the Great has been uploaded today. Please enjoy this episode, featuring intense warfare and various dramatic scenes. And don't forget to subscribe to watch all the previous episodes as well. A grand council hall in Macedon, where Philip II stands before a gathered assembly of Greek leaders. A large map of Persia lies on a table, as Philip gestures towards it, laying out his grand strategy. In 338 BC, following his decisive victory at the Battle of Chaeronea, Philip II of Macedon established himself as hēgemōn, the leader of a new Greek league. According to Diodorus, Philip's ambition was clear: to launch a campaign against the Persian Empire and to liberate the Greek cities on the western coast of Anatolia from Achaemenid rule. His vision was one of revenge and redemption, avenging the grievances Greece had suffered at the hands of Persia in 480 BC. A fleet of Macedonian ships sailing across the Aegean, carrying seasoned warriors to the shores of Anatolia. Parmenion, Amyntas, Andromenes, and Attalus, along with an army of 10,000 men into Anatolia, stand at the bow of their flagship, gazing at the distant coast. Their mission? To lay the groundwork for an all-out Macedonian invasion. As the Greek expeditionary force landed on Persian soil, the Greek cities of western Anatolia, long under Achaemenid rule, saw an opportunity and revolted, preparing to welcome their liberators. As Philip's army in Anatolia prepared for the invasion, news arrived that sent shockwaves across the Greek world. Philip II had been assassinated. A dimly lit royal chamber in Macedon, where Philip II is struck down by an assassin's blade. Chaos erupts as guards rush to apprehend the killer. The great king's ambitious campaign had died with him, leaving the Macedonian expeditionary force leaderless and uncertain. In the background, a young Alexander looks on, his expression a mix of shock and realization. Back in Macedon, his young son Alexander ascended to the throne, inheriting not just his father's kingdom, but also his war. A Greek encampment in Anatolia. Macedonian soldiers, previously full of confidence, now appear demoralized. The revolting Greek cities, realizing Philip's campaign might be over, hesitated. In the distance, Persian forces under Memnon of Rhodes advanced toward them, their banners fluttering in the wind. The Achaemenid forces, led by the skilled mercenary commander Memnon of Rhodes, launched a counterattack near Magnesia. Demoralized and disorganized, the Macedonians suffered a stinging defeat. The dream of a Greek campaign against Persia seemed all but lost. A throne room in Pella. Alexander, newly crowned, stands before his generals, eyes ablaze with determination. A young king, just 20 years old, now sat on the Macedonian throne, Alexander III. Driven by his father's ambition and his own unyielding will, he vowed to continue the war. The golden light from the torches casts long shadows as he vows to complete his father's mission. What began as Philip's vision would soon become Alexander's destiny. The conquest of Persia had only just begun. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great took the first step toward his legendary conquest of the Persian Empire. Taking over the invasion project of his father, Philip II, he led a massive force across the Hellespont. A vast fleet of Macedonian ships, their sails billowing in the wind, making their way across the Hellespont under a clear blue sky. His army consisted of 48,100 soldiers, 6,100 cavalry, and a fleet of 120 ships with 38,000 crew members. Drawn from Macedon and various Greek city-states, as well as mercenaries and warriors from Thrace, Paeonia, and Illyria, his army represented a coalition united under his command. The crossing of the Hellespont was not just a military maneuver, it was the beginning of an empire's destiny. Soldiers stand on deck, looking ahead toward Asia, their faces filled with anticipation. Alexander, clad in his signature plumed helmet and shining armor, stepping off a ship onto the shores of Asia. As the first of his men landed, Alexander made a bold symbolic gesture. He threw his spear into Asian soil, proclaiming that he accepted Asia as a gift from the gods. The bright sun reflects off the water, and his soldiers watch in reverence as he makes his first move on Persian soil. Unlike his father, who had favored diplomacy, Alexander sought conquest by force, making it clear that Persia would be taken through battle, not negotiation. With the crossing complete, Alexander wasted no time. His forces, a long column of Macedonian soldiers with banners flying high, began their march inland, fully aware of the challenges ahead. The rugged terrain of Asia Minor stretches before them, marking the start of their arduous journey. The Persian Empire was vast, well defended, and rich in resources. But Alexander was undeterred. His vision extended beyond mere military conquest. He sought to reshape the world in his own image. With each step, his army moved closer to the first great battle of the campaign, one that would test their resolve and set the tone for the war to come. Unlike his father, who had carefully balanced war with diplomacy, Alexander embraced battle with unshakable enthusiasm. He relished the challenge, believing that divine fate had chosen him to rule Asia. His soldiers, inspired by his confidence, prepared for what lay ahead. The conquest of Persia had begun, and Alexander was ready to carve his name into history. A close-up of Alexander gripping his sword, his eyes filled with fiery determination, standing before his generals and soldiers. A grand battlefield scene showing Macedonian cavalry charging across the river Granicus, clashing with Persian forces. In a daring cavalry charge, he shattered the Persian ranks, securing a decisive victory. His battle proved his military prowess and signaled the beginning of his conquest of the Persian Empire. The chaos of battle is vividly displayed, with Persian soldiers falling back. A Persian envoy kneels before Alexander. Macedonian soldiers stand behind in formation, offering the keys to Sardis, the provincial capital of the region, with the grand city in the background. Recognizing the inevitability of defeat, the city surrendered without resistance, handing over its treasury and fortifications to the Macedonians. This bloodless victory cemented Alexander's control over Western Asia Minor. Alexander addressing a crowd of Greek citizens in an Ionian city, with banners raised and people cheering while Macedonian soldiers stand at attention. Moving along the Ionian coast, Alexander declared the liberation of Greek cities from Persian rule. He granted autonomy and democracy to these cities, strengthening their loyalty to his cause. Macedonian soldiers stand at attention. In doing so, he positioned himself not just as a conqueror but as a liberator and protector of Hellenic culture. Not all cities surrendered willingly. Miletus, held by Achaemenid forces, required a delicate siege operation. Macedonian siege engines and troops surrounding the fortified city of Miletus. Persian naval forces visible in the nearby waters. With Persian naval forces nearby, Alexander used strategic maneuvers to blockade the city. After a brief but intense conflict, Miletus fell, further weakening Persian control in the region. A night battle scene showing flaming arrows and siege towers attacking the massive walls of Halicarnassus, defenders fiercely resisting. Further south, at Halicarnassus, Alexander encountered his first major siege. The fortified city, defended by the Persian satrap Orontobates and the mercenary captain Memnon of Rhodes, presented a formidable challenge. Alexander's forces bombarded the walls relentlessly, using siege engines and battering rams to breach the defenses. The city withstood multiple assaults, but after weeks of intense combat, the defenders were forced to withdraw by sea, leaving Halicarnassus to Alexander. With Caria secured, Alexander sought to establish local governance. Queen Ada, wearing regal attire, officially presenting herself before Alexander, offering him a symbolic gesture of loyalty. He entrusted the region to Queen Ada, a member of the hēgemōn dynasty. Grateful for his support, Ada adopted Alexander as her son, further legitimizing his rule in the region. By securing local loyalty, Alexander ensured stability before continuing his campaign deeper into Persian territory. A grand view of Alexander's army continuing their march inland, banners flying high, with distant Persian lands ahead. With Western Asia Minor under his control, Alexander had secured his foothold in the Persian Empire. The conquests of Sardis, Miletus, and Halicarnassus were only the beginning of an empire-spanning campaign that would bring him face to face with King Darius III himself. A vast Macedonian army marches through mountainous terrain, led by Alexander on horseback. Coastal cities can be seen in the distance, with banners marking Macedonian control. Following his victory at Halicarnassus, Alexander pressed forward into Lycia and the Pamphylian plain. His strategy was clear: seize every coastal city, denying the Persian navy a foothold. The campaign was swift and decisive, as one by one, the cities fell under Macedonian control. With the Persian fleet effectively cut off, Alexander ensured his dominance over the coastline. Alexander and his army moving inland, the coastline fading into the background. The rugged landscape of Pamphylia stretches ahead. From Pamphylia onwards, the coastline held no significant ports. With his objectives complete, Alexander turned inland, pushing his forces into the heart of Asia Minor. The journey would test their endurance, as rugged mountains and fortified cities lay ahead. A panoramic view of Termissos, a fortified city built high in the mountains, with Alexander's army camped below. The city of Termissos, perched high in the Pisidian mountains, posed a formidable challenge. Unlike other cities, Alexander chose a different approach, recognizing its natural defenses and the fierce independence of its people. He refrained from storming the city. Instead, he humbled Termissos, making his presence known without bloodshed, a rare but strategic decision. The ancient city of Gordium, with its grand palace and the legendary Gordian knot tied to an aged chariot inside a temple. Continuing his campaign, Alexander arrived at the ancient Phrygian capital of Gordium. The city, steeped in myth, was home to the famous Gordian knot, a puzzle that, according to legend, could only be solved by the future king of Asia. The challenge was set, and all eyes turned to Alexander. Alexander, standing before the Gordian knot, sword raised, preparing to strike. Onlookers watch in anticipation. Faced with the hitherto unsolvable Gordian knot, Alexander defied expectations. Rather than attempting to untangle the intricate bindings, he drew his sword, and, with a single stroke, severed the knot. "It does not matter how it is undone," he proclaimed. With this bold act, he cemented his destiny as the one who would rule Asia. With the Gordian knot severed, Alexander had symbolically claimed his right to rule. A sweeping view of Alexander's army continuing its march, the sun setting behind him as they head toward their next campaign. But the true test lay ahead. Persia's heartland awaited, and with every step, Alexander moved closer to his ultimate destiny.